I'm going to change the subject on the bill, but I'm real curious about your stand on that pipeline and why you wanted to force that
I'll repeat it.
Going forward into November, because it doesn't cost the Nebraska people anything to have them move them off the aquifer. Now, I have a ranch 3.5 miles where they're proposing putting it.
Okay.
Okay. That Sand Hills is totally, unbelievably wet. It doesn't cost us a dime to move it. Same amount of jobs. That oil is going to Texas, refined and sold on the open market to the highest bidder. So I just want to know and want to understand why you pushed that.
All right. He's talking about the Keystone Pipeline bill that I did in Congress. And I'll give you the big picture here, the total long answer here, because I think a lot of details are necessary to completely answer your question. I'm on the Energy and Commerce Committee. I'm 5th in seniority on that subcommittee, maybe 4th in seniority. We were sitting around in our subcommittee meeting in January saying, look, energy means jobs. What are some things we can do where we can get the energy sector up and running and working? Obviously, offshore, Gulf Shore was an issue, getting permitting so we can get more drilling rigs out there instead of them taking them down to Brazil. Keystone Pipeline was another one that came up, since I was fairly intimately knowledgeable about the issue, because Nebraska has become, no point in pun intended, the line in the sand on the Keystone Pipeline. The big issue with the environmental community isn't the Sand Hills or the Ogallala Aquifer, it's the product that's coming through it. So for them, it's an excuse. You as a rancher in that area may have a different, but the overall national environmental scene is no tar sands, no heavy crude, no pipelines, no coal. I disagree with all of that. So that's my philosophy on energy. Now, so here we have a pipeline that the environmental study has been done. The supplemental requested by EPA has been done. It's sitting there in 2 more weeks or 3 more weeks, it'll be 3 years. The typical pipeline approval, transcontinental pipeline, is 16 to 18 months. And what we have seen the EPA do is exactly what they did in a letter, is drag their feet, because the people in charge of the EPA right now, in my view, my belief, would do everything they could to kill that pipeline. Not move it, but kill it. So what we did is calculated the number of days for the State Department to do all of their reviews, all of their town halls, receive their comment period. We gave them 45 days on top of that, and that took you to November 1st. So rushing it, I don't think it would be the right word, considering how long it's taken and all the science that's been done on it. So I wrote a bill that just basically said the decision has to be made. So State Department, by November 1st, you have to give your recommendation to the President, and the President has to make a decision. So that's what the bill does.
Senator Johann wants it moved, Ben Nelson wants it moved. Have you looked at that?
I looked at the science. I looked at the environmental report. I looked at the supplemental that said that was safe in the.
We've had 12 leaks in less than a year.
What do you? Okay.
On what's already been built, 12 leaks. A 60-foot.
He's saying there's been 12 leaks on another pipeline.
No, on the ones they're already building. That's gone through North Dakota.
Yeah, that's the Keystone Pipeline, not the XL.
And they had a 60-foot geyser on this guy's ranch that they didn't catch.
Well,
and they want to bury this in sand. So when you have the fastest oil in the nation running through the thinnest pipe, buried under...
Well, you know, they changed the pipe.
Oh, now it's going to be thicker?
Yeah. They went to the standard, not the new.
Well, there's a road not far from where his property is. It's called the Sand Road that rarely people even drive on because they get stuck on it because the sand is so deep. So they were out there this weekend surveying over that road. Now, if no one drives that
So now I
road,
know why you didn't want to talk to me when I came up.
and you have the aquifer underneath, there's a leak, the oil's running down into the aquifer, it would take so much oil to even rise to the top of that road to be seen that thousands of gallons would already be in the aquifer by the time anyone even knew it. And I've talked to the engineers of TransCanada, and I asked them that question, like, how are you going to check for leaks? And you know what they said? Any leak that was discovered, they could be there in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. The closest airport is Grand Island if you kept a helicopter there, and it would take an hour to get to where they were surveying. An hour of oil spilling. I can't even imagine how they would even check it. They would have to position people along that pipe that live there.
Well, there's a new pipeline safety bill. First of all, there's been 2 studies done. They've all conformed to all of the EPA's requirements and the Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Agency. And so I've got to go with what they're saying. And they'll make those recommendations to the President, to the State Department and the President.
If you would just go out there and look at that land and that sand and think of burying a pipe carrying oil in that sand and what it's going to mean if that would...
Well, you know, there's others out there already. Some are 30, 40 years old.
Right.
And I'd be more worried about those.
Well, and also
because their pumping stations are a lot further away, and that's how they determine is when the pressure between pumping stations drops, then they know something's happened. The bill that, the pipeline safety bill is what we're calling it. We've already done a subcommittee markup on it. We're going to go to full committee. It goes to transportation. And we're looking at doing right now there's no criteria of how soon they have to be at a leak. Of course, they want to get there as fast as possible because more of a cleanup is more expensive.
Right.
And that was one of the recommendations after the first environmental study is put more pump stations in so there's a shorter space between. We're saying that you have to be positioned to have somebody on site to shut it down within 1 hour.
1 hour of leaking into the aquifer.
But right now there's no standard, and the industry standard is 4 hours.
Right. But
so we're cutting that down
right.
dramatically.
At the same time, why can't we move it off the aquifer to another direction around even Nebraska? Why are we trying to help out TransCanada, who's not even selling us the oil when they get it to the Gulf?
Well, that's absolutely false. That is, I've met with refineries that are adding on, and the pipeline's going to go to them. They wouldn't be spending $1 billion extending their refineries if it wasn't going to be used by them.
No, I'm saying it's going to be, they're making the money on it, but it's sold to the highest bidder after it's refined. Is that correct?
Well, the refineries pay a market price to buy it. So it'd be either under contract or on a spot market to the refinery who's buying it.
Because my understanding was it's on an open market and it goes to the highest bidder once it gets there.
You have contracts, they pay, just like if you have a contract for corn, you pay that price.
Right.
That you can call that open market because at the time you lock it in, that's the price, or on the futures. So I think we're both right when we're saying it's open market, but you're thinking open market as it's going to China.
Yeah.
They're building a second pipeline to the west coast of British Columbia to put on tankers to China already. So this 700,000 barrels of oil is going to come to us, which, by the way, nearly offsets Venezuelan heavy crude. And I'd much rather buy the 700,000 from Canada than from Venezuela.
I agree. But should we move it north of the aquifer and,
We cannot.
can they?
Can they? Yes.
Well then, or that's a win-win, right?
So-
We've not compromised the aquifer, we still,
Well, then you compromise groundwater on the other side of the state. But you see, I'm just saying there's water everywhere, but I agree with the Ogallala aquifer.
yeah.
But we can't,
Precious,
we've asked them,
and they-
they just won't. They said, we've already spent almost $1 billion so far trying to get this through, and we're not going to go back and start all over again and fight the same fight. Because for you, it is about that land right there. For everybody else in the nation, it's about stopping the pipeline. So
Oh, it's stopping.
So if they go back, they're done. They're not going to go through all of that, is what they're telling us when we're saying, why don't you just move it?
Are they bluffing, do you think?
What's that?
Are they bluffing? Or
No,
are
they've
they
invested
in?
way too much money to be bluffing.
35% of our oil comes from Canada right now.
Yes. And they've got a lot. And we're, by the way, now since we're on energy, I'm writing a comprehensive energy bill to get us totally displaced from OPEC oil. And a big chunk of that's going to come from within the United States. And a big chunk of that's going to be natural gas. It's almost every quarter they're finding huge new pockets of natural gas. So if we can move more of our transportation to natural gas, that's less we have to buy. And the sweet spot, by the way, is fleets. So I've been working with fleet operators, natural gas companies, to find out what we need to do to start moving straight trucks and fleets to natural gas. I'm working with the American Trucking Association and semis. That's the next ring out, would be semis.